She agreed to be a surrogate, but after birth, the parents vanished. No baby records. No medical files. Nothing. When she tracked them down, she uncovered a billion-dollar black market for engineered babies, and the shocking truth: her child was never meant to exist. The last thing I remember before the drugs wore off was the sound of my baby crying. My baby. I wasn't supposed to think of it that way. Technically, I was just the carrier. No parental rights. A clean contract. Legal, sterile, controlled. But after 9 months of waking up to kicks, of talking to a bump like it could understand me, of planning a future where I said goodbye at the hospital and walked away, I couldn't. Especially when no one came to claim him. The birth was scheduled. Natural, quiet, a private clinic 2 hours outside the city. No press. No records. Discreet. That's what the couple wanted. Julian and Dana Kessler, founders of some kind of biotech empire, the kind of people who show up in glossy magazines but never in line at the grocery store. They met me through an agency. We had interviews, lawyers, papers. They were polite, generous, charming, and fake, because after I gave birth, they disappeared. No calls. No visit. No legal rep. The clinic director said they'd been delayed. That was a lie. Within 24 hours, my file was deleted from their system. Not marked archived. Deleted. The birth certificate? Didn't exist. Neither did the baby. They took him. Not legally. Not ethically. Just gone. I wasn't supposed to care. But I did. So I started looking. First the agency. Shut down. Under investigation. Phones disconnected. Then the lawyer. Office cleared out. Website scrubbed. And the clinic? Closed for renovations. No answers. No child. Just a photo I'd taken in secret. Me holding him. Right after delivery. Blurry raw reel. And a note in my phone. Kessler Holdings, Zurich HQ. So I bought a passport under a new name, packed a bag, and flew across an ocean to chase the people who stole the only thing in my life that mattered. When I found them, they weren't in Zurich. They were in Monaco. With a different baby. Same stroller. Same embroidered blanket. Different face. That's when I knew. They didn't want a child. They wanted a product. I followed them to a luxury boutique in Monaco. Dana Kessler walked like the world owed her soft lighting and silence. Julian trailed behind on his phone, holding a latte and pushing a stroller. That stroller. Same as mine. Same blanket. Same monogram. But when I stepped close enough to see the baby's face, my stomach dropped. Because it wasn't him. Not the boy I carried. Not the boy I delivered into the world with shaking hands and a racing heart. This baby was younger. Pale. Quiet. A replacement. I froze right there, watching them through the window while the truth clicked together like handcuffs around my chest. They'd done this before. And they'd do it again. Back at my hotel, I pulled up every archived article, board member profile, and photo I could find about the Kesslers and their so-called biotech innovations. They didn't just invest in medical technology. They invested in genetic acquisition. The kind of startup no one talked about in public. The kind that promised ethical alternatives to traditional fertility. The kind that operated without regulation. I needed proof. Not for the authorities, who clearly didn't care. For me. To get my son back, I had to prove something unthinkable. That the Kesslers had stolen him without ever intending to be his legal parents. I flew to the last country listed in the clinic's shuttered network. Ukraine. There, in a quiet office above a cosmetic dentistry center, I met someone who changed everything. Her name was Anya. She'd been a surrogate too. For the same agency. And her story? Was identical to mine, right down to the vanishing couple and the misfiled paperwork. Except in her case, she never even saw the baby. She woke up, still bleeding, in a hotel room with cash in a plastic envelope and a text that read, "Procedure successful. Please do not contact us further." I asked her why she hadn't gone public. She looked at me, eyes empty, and said, "Who would believe us? We're just wombs to them." But she still had one thing. A sample. From a post-delivery blood test she'd secretly copied onto a flash drive. We tested it. The DNA? Didn't match her. Or the couple who paid for the surrogacy. It didn't match anyone. That's when the truth finally dropped. They weren't adopting babies. They were creating them, from purchased genomes, custom-selected traits, and anonymous donors who never knew they'd been turned into prototypes. No family ties. No legal names. No real records. Just engineered life. And when the results didn't meet expectations, they'd start over. Wipe the files. Erase the mothers. And disappear. My son wasn't theirs. He wasn't anyone's, but he was still mine. And now, I had a name, a location, and a plan. Because if the world wouldn't protect him, then I'd expose everything. There's something uniquely sick about a nursery that's too clean. I mean spotless, chrome cribs, white walls, temperature controlled to a decimal. No lullabies, no mobiles, no names on the bassinets, just barcodes, and babies. Anya got me in. She still had contacts, one from her intake, another from her payout. A low-level coordinator named Marta who owed her a favor. She'd fallen out with the clinic after her own surrogate arrangement went sideways. Baby born premature, family refused to pay, the child quietly rehomed. She never forgot. None of us do. The building looked like a wellness retreat. Minimalist signage. White orchids. Soft lighting. But underground? A biometric lab. Secure elevators. Sterile hallways full of biometric scanners and hushed instructions in languages no one wants on record. And then, the holding wing. That's what they called it. Holding. Like storage. Marta had 2 minutes with the keycard and a camera blind spot. That's all I needed. There were 6 babies in the unit. 6. All under 6 months old. 1 missing a limb. 1 with heterochromia. 1 barely breathing. And mine? Row 2, bassinet 4. I recognized him instantly. Not just by the way he looked, but by the noise he made when he saw me. That little wheeze of surprise. Like he remembered me too. I nearly collapsed. But there was no time. I picked him up, he was heavier than I remembered but warm, alive, and I ran. Marta stalled security at the exit just long enough for me to make it through the staff lot, out the service gate, and into a waiting car Anya had arranged through an encrypted rideshare. No name. No trace. Just coordinates. We didn't speak the entire ride. I held him the whole time. Counted his breaths. His fingers. His existence. I didn't cry until we crossed the border. That should have been the end. It wasn't. Because 2 days later I found a burner phone slipped into the stroller basket. It had 1 video file. Footage from a security camera. Me holding my son running through that hallway. And a voiceover I recognized as Julian Kessler's. We'd like him back now. They weren't just chasing me. They were hunting him. Because he wasn't a baby to them, he was intellectual property. Custom built. Biologically priceless. And now mine. So I went to the only place I had left, the press. But not just any journalist. I contacted an international correspondent who'd been banned from half the world's biotech conferences for asking the wrong questions. She met me in an unmarked building with reinforced windows. She saw the footage, heard the recordings, held the DNA test results in her shaking hands, and said, "You didn't just steal a baby. You stole their prototype." What followed wasn't a news story. It was a reckoning. Within 72 hours her exposé dropped online. Headlined. The surrogates they erased, and the black market babies that followed. Names. Documents. Photographs. Leaked interviews. DNA mismatches. Everything. And most importantly, mine. I stepped forward. No more aliases. No more hiding. I let them publish my face, his face. Because they needed to see us. Because he deserved to be real. The story exploded across every screen I couldn't afford to be seen on. Front page features. Primetime specials. Entire Reddit threads dissecting every file, every timestamp, every word I'd said. And then came the wave. The outrage, the demands for accountability, the shock that turned quickly into the kind of slow-burn horror that keeps people awake at night. Because for the first time the public saw the truth. They saw what the Kesslers and their biotech empire had been doing. Not just to me. Not just to Alex. But to dozens, maybe hundreds, of women like me. And to the children none of us were supposed to remember, much less claim. And I waited. In a safe house that wasn't mine, in a country that couldn't pronounce my real name, watching my baby sleep while the world turned upside down outside. The Kesslers responded in the only way billionaires know how, with cold, weaponized denial. Dana gave a statement through an attorney. Julian filed a defamation suit in 2 countries simultaneously. Their legal team called the footage heavily doctored, and the allegations slanderous attacks on a couple mourning a personal tragedy. But the second leak blew that story to pieces. It didn't come from me. It came from someone inside. A woman named Elle, a former embryologist who had fled the program 2 years prior and had been in hiding ever since. She sent the journalist a secure drive labeled 1st_gen_projects.7z, encrypted with a password taken from a Shakespeare quote only a true academic would remember. What was inside wasn't just damning, it was systemic. A full database of trial genomes, gestation schedules, failure rates. Each file had a numeric label, a coded surrogate, and a set of outcomes. And then came the notes. Subject did not meet phenotype expectations. Discrete reassignment to secondary facility. Unit recycled. And there, buried among the rest, Al3X_04. My son. Marked, moderate viability, monitor closely. Owner, field left blank. Origin, composite genome, source intentionally obscured. He wasn't just born. He was built. No mother. No father. Just a curated sequence, selected from donors who never knew, carried by a woman who was supposed to forget. Except I didn't. The exposure detonated like a warhead. Interpol began coordinating with local governments across 5 countries. Fertility clinics were raided. Quiet labs in Dubai, Kiev, Geneva, and Hong Kong were stripped down to wires. Doctors were detained. Executives vanished. And the families? The ones who thought they'd legally adopted? The ones who believed the lies. Some broke. Some tried to disappear. Some, those rare aching few, contacted me, asking how to love a child they now realized wasn't meant to be loved. Just manufactured. I told them the truth. You don't need to know where they came from to know what they deserve. I filed for asylum under humanitarian grounds in a country with strict child protection laws. It was granted. Alex received citizenship. A new birth certificate. A pediatrician who didn't ask questions he wasn't ready to answer. Me. I became a ghost with a heartbeat. A name that didn't match my documents. A woman who lived in quiet buildings under louder skies. And then, a week after we were safe, I found something in Alex's stroller. A phone. Small. Unmarked. One video file. Grainy footage of me fleeing the clinic. Holding Alex. Running. And then Julian's voice. We'd like him back now. No threats. No demands. Just a statement of fact. Because to them he wasn't a person. He was property. That was the moment I stopped hiding. Because they didn't just want to take him back. They wanted to make me disappear. So I went public again. On camera. On record. I stood in front of a panel of international media outlets and told them every detail I hadn't before. How they erased my name from the files, how they deleted his existence, how they made sure nothing tied us together except the ache in my chest that never went away. And then I showed them the files. I said his name out loud. And the world listened. The Kesslers resurfaced 3 weeks later. Julian was caught at a private airstrip in South Africa, trying to board a flight under a false identity. Dana was found in a villa in Brazil. She claimed she was a victim, manipulated, gaslit. She wept in court. Julian didn't speak. Neither one would see freedom again. I declined every interview offer that followed. The book deals. The documentaries. The streaming platforms. Because this story isn't content. It's a warning. About what happens when science outpaces morality. About what people will justify in the name of progress. About how easy it is to erase a mother if she wasn't supposed to matter in the first place. Alex is older now. Smart. Kind. A little too quiet sometimes. He doesn't know all of it yet. But one day he will. And when he asks me why I didn't give up, why I kept going when the world tried to unmake us both, I'll look him in the eye and say, because you were never just a project. You were never theirs. You were mine.